All right, let's get right into it. We're going to unpack a message that's, believe it or not, about 3,000 years old. It comes from the Taoist mystic Chuang, and it all revolves around this incredibly simple but powerful story about a boat. So picture this. You're out on the water, peacefully crossing a river in your boat, and then suddenly, bam, another boat smacks right into yours. Now, your first reaction might be a flash of anger, right? Especially if you have a bit of a temper. But in this one specific case, you don't get angry, not even a little bit. And the question is, why? Well, it's simple. The boat is empty. There's no one there to get mad at. But what happens if we change just one tiny detail in this whole scene? Well, this simple little collision, this non-event, actually tells us something incredibly profound about where our anger really comes from. Okay, so look at the difference here. It's night and day, right? The empty boat hits you and there's no reaction. You just move on. But if you look over and see a person in that other boat, everything changes. You'll shout at them to watch out. If they ignore you, you'll yell a little louder. And pretty soon you're probably cursing them out. And as Chuang puts it, all of this happens because there's somebody in the boat. So get this, the anger isn't from the bump itself. It's from the person. And this whole thing brings us to this really core idea. The battle between being a somebody and a nobody. You can think of this as the difference between having a full boat and an empty one. So what is a full boat? Well, think of it as a metaphor for your ego. You know, it's all the stuff you pack into your sense of self. Your name, your job title, your history, your big achievements, your opinions. It's that somebody inside you that feels personally attacked when life bumps into it. You get so full of yourself, there's no room for anything else. And this really lays out the two different ways you can go through life. On one side, you've got the full boat. That's the ego's way. It's all about constant conflict, always striving, always in some kind of turmoil. It's exhausting, right? But then you look at the other side, the empty boat. That's a whole different game. That's the state of no self. And that's where you find real peace, that feeling of being in the flow, and a genuine freedom from having to constantly defend who you think you are. And the really mind-blowing insight here is that you are the obstacle. Yourself, your ego, that's the only thing that's ever really in your way. When you can just get out of the way, when you disappear, everything just opens up. You become as boundless as the sky. So if our ego is the big obstacle, what even is it, really? Well, Chuang has another amazing story that kind of frames it as a kind of delusion. At the end of the day, the ego is just one big case of mistaken identity. We get so attached to our form, our physical body, our social status, our job title, that we actually start to believe that's who we are. And this leads to a kind of madness, which is captured perfectly in this story of the Rooster Prince. Okay, so get this story. There's this prince who completely loses it. He's convinced he's a rooster and starts living naked under a table. Everyone tries to cure him, but nothing works. Finally, a wise man comes along, and instead of arguing with the prince, he gets naked, goes under the table, and starts acting like a rooster too. Slowly, over time, the wise man starts putting on clothes and eating human food. And the prince, seeing his fellow rooster do it, just follows along and is eventually cured. But here's where it gets really wild. The punchline of the story is that, yeah, thinking you're a rooster is crazy, but thinking you're a fixed man or a woman or any single identity, that's an even bigger madness. Why? Because our true self, our true nature, is formless. Any label we stick on it is just a tiny limiting box. And this line of thinking gets even more radical. It basically takes a sledgehammer to everything we're taught about success and what it means to be a somebody in this world. Think about this for a second. Success is the beginning of failure. What does that even mean? Well, the moment you hit that peak, the moment you think, I've made it, the great cosmic wheel of life has already started to turn. The only way left to go is down. And it's the exact same logic with fame. The second you become well-known, you've basically just set yourself up to be torn down. The ego that craves that spotlight is the very same thing that will suffer when the spotlight moves on. Now, this next idea, this might be the toughest one to swallow. Because what Chuang is saying is that even trying to be a good person, trying to build a noble character, even that can be an ego trap. It's just another way of puffing yourself up, of making yourself feel superior, of packing your boat so full of virtues that it just gets heavier and heavier. And this metaphor just captures it perfectly, doesn't it? The straightest tree is the one everyone wants for timber. The purest spring is the first one people drain. Being useful, being famous, being righteous, all of these things make you a target. They make you vulnerable. But the person who's a nobody, who's useless, well, they can't be harmed.
So if being a somebody is a trap, what's the alternative? What's the goal here? Well, it's not about becoming a better somebody. It's about having the courage to become a nobody. It's about becoming the empty boat.
And the perfect person in this Taoist view, they look nothing like our modern heroes. In fact, to most people, they probably look like a total fool. Their steps leave no trace because they aren't trying to get anywhere special. They don't have any power or fame or achievements to brag about. And here's the best part. Because they don't judge anyone, no one can really judge them. They're free. And it all comes full circle, right back to where we started. The ultimate state of being, of wisdom and freedom, is simply to have an empty boat. There's just no one home to get angry, no one there to take the hit, no one to be praised or blamed. There's only emptiness, and in that emptiness, there's room for everything. So when you think about it, your own boat is probably pretty full, packed with all sorts of things, right? Beliefs, old hurts, accomplishments, identities. The real path to peace isn't about jamming more stuff in. It's about what you're willing to let go of. And that leaves us with a really important question to think about. If you were going to start emptying your boat today, right now, what's the very first thing you'd toss overboard?